Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here for Lowepost.com, and I'm back again with the next lesson in our Conform series. And today I want to talk about alpha channels. Now I'm talking about alpha channels in the scope of doing a round trip from your nonlinear editing application to Resolve and then back again. When we first talked in our first few lessons about bringing our timelines from Media Composer, Premiere, Final Cut into Resolve, in most cases that's where the buck stops. It's very rare that you're going to be sending timelines from Resolve back to your nonlinear editing application, but in the situations where you do, there are important things you need to understand, especially when it comes to alpha channels and how Resolve deals with them, so you don't run into a world of hurt real quick. Now, I had a bit of an epiphany when I was doing my research for this lesson, and that is there's a lot of people out there that do tutorials on this exact type of workflow. And they're really all the same lesson. And one thing that I found very interesting was the fact that when they show how to take a timeline from Resolve back to your nonlinear editing application, they only ever show it with one video track from Resolve going back over to your nonlinear editing application. Now, in certain cases, they might show it as two tracks, but it's really just the second track might have an edit on it that's a cut. But what about the situation that we're in where we have our multiple layers that have elements shrunk down and are moving from left to right? So why wouldn't they get in and show you how to do that workflow? Well, let me show you one of the problems that you're going to run into very quickly when working with alpha channels. Now, I do have a clip here that has an alpha channel. Now, how do I know it has an alpha channel? Well, this gray area, because it's not black, actually represents transparency. You can actually see through it right over here to those background folders. So I know for a 100% fact that this element has an alpha channel. Now I'm just going to Command or Alt and Tab into DaVinci Resolve. Let's come to the media pool and let's bring that clip in. I'm just going to go to the desktop. I'm going to grab my Add Seasoning clip. We're just going to drag and drop like such. I'm going to come back to the Edit module. I'll take that clip. We'll drag it and drop it in here like such. There we go. Perfect. It's keyed over top of the background. What I'm also going to do here is I'm going to just add a dissolve in, we'll add a dissolve out, perfect, and I'm going to shrink this down a little bit, and we'll just reposition it here, right about there. Maybe we're talking about cooking all over the world, and we just want a shot of somebody actually doing some cooking in here, perfect. Okay, so what do all these shots have in common? Well, all these shots have in common the fact that they are keyed over the background. But how they've been keyed is slightly different. One element has an alpha channel. The other two elements do not have an alpha channel. They're being transformed from within Resolve. So if you're not thinking the process through, what you think you're going to do at this point is you are going to come to the Deliver module. Inside the Deliver module, what we're going to do is we're just going to set this up for a Premiere export here. Let's go to Premiere XML, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to render these elementals because I already know that these elements have to have alpha channels, or what I'm hoping Resolve is going to do is it's going to take these elements and it's going to blow them up to be full size of the frame, it's going to render them out, and then in whatever I get, the XML or the AAF file, then it's going to do whatever conversion it's going to do. But what I'm going to do for right now is let's just get these clips out of here because I want to see what they're going to do, and I want to see how Resolve is going to handle the alpha channel. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're exporting individual clips, and we're going to the test folder that's going to be on our desktop. I'll just create a new folder called, appropriately enough, test folder, like that. Perfect. I'll say open. And I need to make sure that when rendering these elements out, if they're going to need an alpha channel, that they're going to have one. Now, Apple ProRes 4444 is a codec that supports alpha channel. Now, I also want to make sure that I am exporting the alpha. We'll just leave it as straight. That's perfectly fine for the purposes of me showing this to you. Audio, there is no audio, but we'll leave it as being two channels with linear PCM audio. And as far as the file type that we're going to be exporting, it's going to use the source name, and we'll just leave everything else on the standard default presets. Okay. What we're going to do now is I'm going to come down and I'm going to say add to render queue. Now, one thing that I really love about Resolve is watching how it does things, because when you click render, you're actually going to get a visual representation of exactly what is going on. Now, how we have our timeline laid out now is a little bit different than what we're actually going to need. And let me show you what I mean. This is where people can run into problems really quick, sending things back to your nonlinear editing application if you don't think things through properly. What we're going to do is navigate over to Start Render. And what Resolve is going to do, I'm just going to close the clips section here, is that Resolve is going to go through, it's going to render out each clip at a time, and what I'm hoping it's going to do is it's going to blow these clips up full frame, and it's going to render them out full frame so that we can take them and shrink them back down when we go into Premiere. Okay, I'm going to say start render, and I want you to watch what happens. Background clip, great, does exactly what we hope it's going to do. However, with the first clip that's supposed to be a keyable element, I saw it sitting there over top of black. Now this is again a background clip, that's fine, but again, this is a clip that looks like it's being flattened down over top of a black background. Now there's my other clip here that I know has an alpha channel. Again, looks like it's being flattened down. So we already have a big problem. Okay? What's going to happen now when we actually take a look at these files in the folder on our desktop? Now this is the last background clip that's full frame like I would expect it to be. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hide out of Resolve, and I'm going to come to that folder on my desktop. Now what Resolve has done is it's made that XML file. Now don't worry, we're going to get more into setting our Resolve timeline back to Premiere in a couple lessons. But what I wanted to show you in here is the fact that this is great, full frame. Okay, great, full frame. Great, full frame, big problem. This clip has actually been flattened down and merged into the background with no alpha channel. So what am I supposed to do with this? This doesn't help me. Same with the next shot, same with the next shot. But what I want to draw to your attention is the fact that what Resolve will do when exporting clips with alpha channels is it will maintain the alpha channel only for clips that actually have alpha channels attached to them. When you brought them into Resolve, it will export with alpha channels to clips that you've actually gone in and used the keyer to key out parts of it that actually give it a transparent background. Now, of course, you do need to choose a codec that supports alpha channels like DNxHD, DNxHR, or ProRes. Those three codecs, now both of them are available on Mac. Avid DNxHD and Avid DNxHR are available on Windows. Those codecs support alpha channels if you're in a situation where you need to render an element out that already has an alpha channel or something you've created as a keyable element. So that does bring up the question, how are we then going to take this timeline from our editing application to Resolve to then send it back again? Well, let's start up the next 3 lessons talking about how we're going to do this in Avid Media Composer, and we'll talk about that in our next lesson. All right, now as always, if you have any questions, you have any comments, or ideas for upcoming lessons or courses, I want you to head on over and post them in our forums at Lowepost.com.